A lot of you have probably heard that eating meat is bad for the environment, but if you're anything like me, you probably haven't stopped eating it for the simple reason that you like how it tastes and you don't want to switch over to a vegan or vegetarian diet. Josh Tetrick, the CEO of the futuristic food company Just Inc., seemed to agree with that, saying this in an interview.
People like eating meat, it's just the way it is. If we can figure out a way to allow them to eat all the meat they want, just a different kind of better meat without all the issues, I just think that's the most pragmatic way to fix a problem.
However, I'm here to tell you about a new scientific advancement that will let you eat meat without nearly the same impact on the environment. The solution is cultured meat, or rather, meat that's been grown in a lab instead of on an animal. Now, why is it so important to find an alternative to the way that we get our meat now? After all, we've been raising animals for food for thousands of years. The answer is that livestock production is responsible for an estimated 14.5% of all human greenhouse gas emissions, most of which come from cattle farming. In fact, the process of creating cultured meat requires about 99% less land and 96% less water than traditional livestock agriculture. In fact, a 2018 report from the Good Food Institute indicated that exclusive consumption of cultured meat would reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 74 to 87% compared to traditional methods. Most of you have probably heard of other meat alternatives before, like the Impossible Burger and other vegetable and soy-based options. Cultured meat is not a substitute. It is meat, just grown in a different way. This is what makes me believe cultured meat is such a great solution for the future, because people can continue eating the same things they always have and will continue to want to eat, but without the same environmental impact. Growing the meat in a lab, instead of by traditional methods, allows us to save all the wasted energy we use to raise the animal, and instead create only the part that we want to use, the meat. Currently, cultured meat faces two main problems: public opinion around eating meat that's been grown in a lab, and practical problems around implementing large-scale production for the future. Starting with public opinion, in February 2019, a global survey found that just under 30% of US consumers said they would be very or extremely willing to regularly purchase cell-based meat. This is obviously a problem for the industry if people aren't willing to buy it, no matter how much better for the environment it is, despite the fact that it's the same meat, just made in a different way. Uma Voletti, the CEO of the cultured meat company Memphis Meats, seemed to agree with these findings, saying this in an interview about public opinion on lab-grown meat.
I think we should be realistic, and the industry should be realistic, that you just can't expect everybody to say, yes, I'm behind it. It's going to take time.
Those interviewed in other countries, such as China and India, were much more willing to try it, with just under 60% of Chinese consumers saying they would buy it, and just under 50% of Indian consumers saying they would buy it. Most people who wouldn't try it did so because they felt that meat grown in a lab is unnatural, or that it's somehow artificial meat. These are problems with people's opinions and perceptions of cultured meat, and will have to change slowly, over time, as it becomes more common and more widely available, as well as once we start to have more information about it when it becomes public. There is also significant misunderstanding about what cultured meat is. Since cultured meat comes from unmodified animal cells, cultured meat is not a genetically modified food. This leads me to believe that even though many US companies are at the forefront of creating cultured meat products, it will get its foothold first in other foreign countries and slowly work its way into American stores. A survey also found that younger generations were much more willing to try cultured meat products than older generations, which again means it will slowly become more accepted over time, as younger generations will start to grow up with cultured meat products available as an option. The other problem with cultured meat is implementing it into large-scale production. In 2013, the first cultured meat burger was created, after over 2 years of effort and over $300,000, using tissue from hundreds of test tubes. Since 2013, significant progress has been made in the field of cultured meat. Dr. Mark Post, the creator of that first cultured burger, said that he expects them to be available on store shelves as soon as 2021, and he expects a burger to cost about $10. Cultured meat will only continue to drop in price, as traditional meat might actually start becoming more expensive, as consumers start having to pay the real environmental cost for their food, depending on future policies made to prevent climate change. Uma Voletti, the CEO of the US-based cultured meat company Memphis Meats, had this to say about the shift from agricultural meat to lab-based meat.
If this demand for meat continues in the way it is, there just isn't enough resources for it. That's kind of why I think the crux of the whole thing requires massive innovation.
It's not just beef, though. Currently, there are companies around the world working to create cultured chicken, pork, fish, lamb, and even shrimp. This brings up an almost unintended benefit of cultured meat, which is that meat that's currently expensive due to being hard to find or hard to get will become much, much cheaper as we can grow as much as we like in cultured meat labs anywhere in the world. There's been a lot of progress on large-scale cultured meat production, from growing them individually in test tubes to now large vats called bioreactors. The founder of Memphis Meats, one of several cultured meat companies in the US, estimated that a refrigerator-sized bioreactor could create about half a ton of meat in just 2 weeks. He also said that, whereas it takes a year to a year and a half to raise a cow for slaughter, a farmer using a bioreactor could create the equivalent amount of meat in just under a month. Now that I've addressed some of the issues with cultured meat, I want to tell you a bit more about how the process works, and some more reasons why I think it's the sustainable food of the future. Currently, the most environmentally friendly way to make beef is to raise cattle with the Swedish organic method, raising cows on pastures with low fertilizer input. Lab-grown meat processes are expected to be even kinder to the environment, though. Cultured meat would make an especially large impact on U.S. pollution, as the American approach to beef production was consistently found to be the worst for the environment in several different studies. It is still hard to predict what the environmental impact of cultured meat could be, as it will largely depend on whether energy production has been decarbonized by the time cultured meat enters mass production. But remember, current livestock production is still responsible for 14.5% of global greenhouse gas emissions. Even when world energy isn't completely green, cultured meat will still be significantly better for the environment than the way we do things right now. Now, how exactly does cultured meat production work? To simplify the process a bit, stem cells are collected from a living animal with no need to kill it. Those cells are then put into a bioreactor, which creates ideal conditions for more of those cells to be produced. The cells continue to multiply and are then formed into pieces of meat. There is a problem with that, though. Currently, the serum that cultured meat cells need to grow, used inside of bioreactors, is partially made of animal blood. However, scientists are working on isolating the chemicals in blood that make the serum effective for growing cells. Once they find that out, there will be no need to use animal blood in the serum anymore. You might be thinking that this doesn't sound much better than traditional meat production methods if we still need to raise animals to harvest cells from. However, according to Maastricht University in the Netherlands, the cells from a single cow could be used to create the equivalent of 440,000 cows worth of meat. Given that there are currently an estimated 1.5 billion cows in the world, if we assume that all of them were used for meat production, and that bioreactors could produce that estimated amount of meat, then that number could be brought down to just about 3,500 cows worldwide, thanks to cultured meat. There is another benefit to switching to cultured meat that isn't even related to the environment. Because we have such a level of control over the formation of the meat, we can also make use of the technology to make healthier food, because the fat and cholesterol levels of cultured meat can be changed, without the need to modify animal genes. According to Tom Ireland of Science Focus magazine, there is no reason why scientists couldn't grow artificial meat with characteristics from a combination of animals, or enhance lab-grown meat with healthier fats, vitamins, or vaccines. We could even taste the flesh of rare animals that nobody would dream of slaughtering for food. I decided that I wanted to start researching cultured meat because I'd read the numbers about the impact eating meat was having on the environment, but I didn't want to stop eating it because I really enjoy it. So when I heard about cultured meat and the possibility that clean meat grown in a lab could become the future of the way we consume our food, I was excited by this thought. I wanted to see what the possibility for the future could hold. The prospect of eating something that is in fact real meat, but not coming from an animal, was very interesting. I don't even know if it could be considered vegan because it's not coming from an animal, even though it's still meat. The fact is that industrial pollution still remains the largest contributor to climate change, but with cultured meat, we could eliminate something that makes up a large part of human greenhouse gas emissions, and one that can be directly controlled by consumers. Anyone who eats meat, or has changed their diet for purely environmental reasons, should be looking into the future of cultured meat, considering the predicted 2021 appearance on store shelves, and the general consensus that we have to change our diets in order to do what we can to stop climate change. I hope that you learned something new about cultured meat, and that you now understand why I think it's the food of the future. Cultured meat can, and will, completely revolutionize our food industry, and remove a major source of greenhouse gas pollution from our environment. I would encourage you to keep up with news about cultured meat, considering we're just a few years away from the predicted public release, and because it could quickly replace a traditional meat in our diet throughout the world. The change to an environmentally focused society is nearly here. People have been raising animals for food for thousands of years, and the change to cultured meat will mark a massive shift in human history that defines our advancement into the information age and beyond.